we'll give it a minute or two, just so people know we went live.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the
chat,
the live chat now. Looks like it's good to go. We got automatic closed caption.
Yep.
Nice.
We already have 4 viewers. That's quick. They jumped all over it.
That's going to be a good one.
Yeah. All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. It's another banging Friday. We, Jimmy, I don't know about you, but, now that, Jimmy and I, both of our sons play high school lacrosse. They're both seniors in high school. So every time lacrosse season shows up, it seems like you never have any time and time just flies. Whatever time you do have just flies. But what it's not going to do is it's not going to stop. It's not going to prevent me from still throwing things in the smoker for 10 to 15 hours and get that stuff cooking. I got a brisket in my smoker right now that's been in there since about 1:30 this afternoon. So hopefully sometime tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe around midnight I'll be over.
Yeah, it might be about that time.
The rest of your crew will be sleeping, so I'll get first dibs.
Yeah, roger that. Hey, we got a special guest with us tonight. We're going to bring him in. He is an African-American. See, I say African-American because I think that's what, I don't know. We'll ask him when he gets in here. How's that sound? Because
good start.
He's a Black conservative, lives here in the area. Ladies and gentlemen, help me in introducing Big Wes.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris and Jimmy, thank you so much. It's an honor to be a part of y'all show. Definitely, I really appreciate you, Chris, taking the time to make sure that, everything's set up and connected and whatnot. And let's go ahead and get. Oh yeah, as far as like ethnicity descriptions, I would honestly just prefer Black because African American is only because it implies that my family recently came from over there. There's no connection, and honestly, they don't even like us over there. You know what I'm saying? It's a fact.
It's true.
They call us akatas, jareers, abids, and all the kind of stuff. So it's just like, all right, I'm just Black.
Yeah. So we really appreciate you coming on. What we try to do, generally speaking, is we never want to be an echo chamber. We like to try to get our liberal friends to jump on here, but it's really hard to get them to come on. And even if you can get them to halfway semi-commit to do it, generally speaking, they don't want to really have a conversation. They just want to, get offended and leave. So we're kind of stuck. We're kind of stuck with just getting different perspectives from different things. So starting off with that, is your whole family conservative, or is this a rift thing with you in the family?
Yes. Actually, it's weird. Like, my family identifies with the left, quote unquote, progressive policies and whatnot. Ideals, but low key they share conservative ideas. But I think what the issue is I don't want to ever knock a conservative or fellow Republican, but I guess it's the people that lead that might turn some of my family members off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like for example, a member of my immediate family, they were like, "Yo, Obama, workers' rights and this, that, and the other, and all this stuff." But then when my immediate family member, when his receptionist got pregnant, I asked him, I was like, "Hey, when she gives birth, are you going to give her maternity leave?" And he was like, "For what?" And I was like, "Wow, okay, okay," if that makes sense, you know what I'm saying? And so I definitely kind of went rogue with my ideas because a few years ago, some bad stuff happened, and I had to rebuild myself, and that's when those conservative values kicked in. And
I want to ask about that, Wes. And I hate that to really ever harp on race and how that plays into things.
Yeah, we hate it. We can't stand this argument.
Yeah,
I mean, I honestly, I really, I don't like that we're segregating all the time, and we're lumping people together based on their ethnicity, skin color, whatever it is, when there's so much diversity even in the Black community or the white community. There, and every community, every minority community, there's so much diversity. So why group everybody together in one thing? I don't agree with like a Black caucus or whatever. Like, I don't understand it. And that's kind of like one of my questions for you would be, how do you feel about that? Do you think it's important to specifically support the Black community or whatever community versus let's just support American values and support everybody in that way? Like, do you think that's my main question for you? But I would like to find out a little bit more about how specifically how you kind of found yourself leaning more towards the right.
Yes. All right. Yeah, the way I started leaning towards the right is, when I lost everything and I had to rebuild myself. And I guess being a single male, there wasn't too many like charities or grants or whatever else, I guess. And I mean, which I wasn't exactly looking for. This thing wasn't offered, and then I had to, work. I had to work hard. I had to put in work. I had to I got back into school and used my GI Bill, and I had to study hard in order to advance in school. And then and then also with that is that, like, and also there was like a lot of accusations of X, Y, and Z is racist. But like when I was in the Marines, I was a sergeant, and I had some white colonels calling me by my first name.
Mm-hmm.
White 06s, Silver Eagles on their collar, calling me by my first name. Or if I ran into a bind, they called someone the HQ Marine Corps and got things cracking on my behalf and stuff.
Yeah, you consider that a sign of respect, right? That's
Absolutely. Exactly. So Wes, you don't know, but I'm retired Navy, and Jimmy is former Army.
Okay, nice. Come from
Army. Nice diversity.
Yeah.
So we got the professional campers, the junior team of the Navy, and the Navy.
I'll take that.
Little vet circle right here. That's what's up. Mm-hmm. With the community, I do think in certain situations it might be appropriate to at least identify their needs. But if it's community based, like let's say if there's like a quote unquote like a Black community in, let's say, DC, maybe in order to get them up to par, them specifically, maybe their needs might be this, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Would you treat that any of those white people in that community differently? Like,
of course
that's why I just don't really care. Like, why refer to it as a Black community? Let's talk about the struggling community in DC, something like that, or a struggling community in Chicago. Like, and let's boost everybody who's in that. They're sharing those conditions. They're living together. Just because there's a more concentrated group and maybe a greater majority of Blacks in a certain area, I don't know. I think it lends that victimhood argument, I guess, to people to keep considering themselves victims because they think, oh, well, I'm in this specific community that's being targeted based on race, like, rather than just saying like, hey, these people are struggling in this area, and they've dealt with these things over time, and so they're all sharing that.
And it makes sense to do it that way because not too far from us, from any of the three of us, mm-hmm. right across the state line. I don't care if you go to Pennsylvania or you go to West Virginia, there's struggling communities over there too, but they aren't necessarily Black communities, or they aren't specifically white communities. They are just communities that are struggling.
Appalachia is some of the most poorest, drug-ridden, kind of communities that kind of exist. You just don't hear about it, and they're not addressed the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I guess the way I probably should rephrase it, because like where I live along the Potomac, yes, definitely. I've seen some people struggling of all different colors and whatnot and stuff. So, but like I guess if like let's say if there's like a a community in, let's say, Chicago, Los Angeles, and we want to try to reach them, and they happen to be like Hispanic descent, then we could say, hey, well, at least this, everyone can be helped, but let's say the majority can't. Let's say they can't speak the best English, then okay, well, let's send some people that might know the language better. Kind of, when I went to Afghanistan as an advisor, they talk, they're like, hey, this is the culture, this is the language, this is how you can address them. But I definitely see what Jimmy is saying, 100%, and definitely want to break that any potential victimhood mentality, because that's what messes people up. Because I want to be the example of said, hey, I was a Marine, I got out, things didn't work out after I got to become a civilian again. I then started grinding, and now life is good, and use me as an example that, hey, when the left says, hey, the white man is gonna keep his foot on your neck, you can't do nothing. No, that's not true. Look at me, life is
Well, that's an argument that's made to shut down the conversation.
Yeah.
So and it's not just, and I'll say this, it's not just, I mean, on that particular issue, that's a left conversation killer. I mean, there's conversations that the right has too. I think a lot of times, even though I'm a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment, and I'm I believe that it should not be infringed, I think that a lot of times we as conservatives shut down that conversation with certain buzzwords and certain ways that we approach the conversation, but that's not helpful. It's not helpful, and that's why and it's done for a reason. It's done so that the actual conversation, the actual issues that need to be addressed associated with it are never reached. You're never going to reach what really needs to be talked about, because as soon as somebody says, well, it's the black community, or, well, shall not be infringed, the conversation's over, because now you're just going to get into the back and forth buzzwords, and you're never going to get to the actual conversation that needs to take place to solve anything. And it's by design, because those things are all driven. What do those topics drive? Those topics all drive money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can use BLM. I hate to use them as an example because, they're a fraud, but
very much.
But why do the bank that just went out of business in California, they gave a $75 million donation to BLM like 2 years ago. Why is a bank giving any organization like that, or any organization period, $75 million? And the same can be said about the huge donations to and from the NRA. The NRA is not Congress. The NRA doesn't drive policy. They influence it, certainly, with their amount of money that they have and that they spend on Capitol Hill to ensure that they get what they want, but they're not the proprietors of the rules. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. I think it's all a money scam. It's all a bid to produce more money for people to go and buy mansions in Canada and run away when their shit folds.
And Chris, like, that's the thing. Like, I guess kind of runs along the lines of like the echo chamber, but like whenever I bring up the people that were running with the BLM thing, and I'm like, yo, look at all this money. Where did it go? They got cribs, they got this, that, and the other. And it's just like they have nothing to say back, and they keep on going with their agenda. And I'm just, and so when I do, meet Americans who when I come across Americans who look like me, I'm like, hey guys, look, it was all a scam, it was a fraud. And then they go, well, that was just the organization. How about the ideals? And I'm like, oh my
God. That's the argument. Well, if you remember, at first it wasn't an organization; it was a movement. There was no leadership. Then it moved to, well, we have leadership, but they're just the organization, and we act independently. And then when all the shit went south, it was, well, the organization stole all the money.
A lot of it, yep, and put their people in certain positions, like as consultants, when like they've never done consultant anything. Never had held management positions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was definitely nuts. And hopefully, with me and Blacks, we can get more people to to see through that. It was all a con.
Yeah, no, yeah, and I don't mean to harp on that specifically because
No, please, yeah, it's all good.
That's just one issue of, you can stretch that across virtually any. I mean, the Native Americans are now seemingly on an uprise with the same kind of stuff. I mean, California is the worst example I could possibly use because I don't think anybody would expect anything but what California is doing. But they're talking about paying every Black person in California $360,000 for reparations.
Time out. It got updated to 5 million.
Yeah.
So, really? I must have missed that.
So the state is 360,000. San Francisco specifically is the 5 million.
On top of wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And it also is particularly hilarious that we're talking about a state that never had slavery once.
That's right.
In existence,
that's right.
Absurd.
Because slavery never made it past the middle of the country.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that the argument they used was like because they said like people from the South went over there, but like the biggest thing is if they were to get all this access money, like I'm not even sure where they would even get it from, because I know when I was living in California, they had an issue with just the governor had to double everyone's registration to pay for the roads. Mm-hmm. and also the state is having a hard time paying for the beach upkeep. So right. I'm not even sure where they would even get the funds for that from. And then
and they don't know either.
No, they don't know.
I mean, they have absolutely no idea,
other than non-Black families.
And but you have to remember too, California is running I think if I remember the number right, it's a $230 million budget deficit already right now. So their budget deficit is already in the 200 millions. And then they're going to throw on top of it, I think, God, I wish I could remember the number off the top of my head. They gave the total number of Black families that live in California, multiply that by the amount of money, and it came out to over $1 billion that they're talking about. Yeah, that they're talking about this costing. And they have absolutely no way of figuring out how they're going to pay for that, which leads me to believe, which doesn't really lead me to believe. I mean, it kind of is what it is. You got to remember that Gavin Newsom is running for president against Joe Biden. So he hasn't officially, but he's going to.
He's certainly positioned.
Yeah, he's absolutely going to, because two reasons I believe that. I believe that because of this, because he's giving lip service. So he's trying to. What was that? Was that you, Jimmy?
That's my computer.
It's talking to you.
Yes.
He's putting himself in a position to garner the Black vote nationwide. And the second thing that tells me that is his recent stance on the court decision, basically making his assault rifle and large capacity magazine ban in California unconstitutional. And instead of fighting it like he normally would have and has historically done, what he's doing now is he basically came to the podium and said, well, looks like we're not going to win this one, guys. They said it's unconstitutional, so I guess we're just going to have to go with it. Whereas before it was always, no, we're going to fight this. We're going to take it higher, and we're going to, so he's obviously positioning himself to where he's going to get more likability across the nation instead of just in California.
No, you said a lot right there. That makes a lot of sense. Kind of what Larry Elder busted the whole Black speech thing, where yes, the state did take the beach and all that. Yes, and it did give it back. However, there was 19 other plots owned by white families that the state also took. And I'm saying, out of fairness, if you're going to give the money back to one family, you need to give back to everyone else's family. And he apparently didn't do that. So the black speech was positioning stuff for the reparations, and then that for the vote. Yep. Same with giving people assistance that aren't even citizens. And I'm gonna say, because I've been to Australia, and the first time I went to Melbourne, Australia, I got sick as a dog down there, and I was told that if I want to use their healthcare, I'm not like the Australian residents where they get free healthcare. I have to pay out of pocket. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm not a citizen, but I understood that it made sense. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
that's just like entering a country legally or illegally. Like, there's the same expectation is not the same across the world. Of course, I don't expect that any other European country or even Australia specifically is going to let you enter their country unless they know exactly who you are, what you're doing, and that's just entering. So,
not even benefits, you know?
Nothing. And there's, if you look across the board at and I don't even call it democratic policy anymore. I just call it liberal policy because that's what it is. Everything is a handout now. You got districts, not just in California, although that's the most prevalent one because that's the one you hear about most, but they're talking about giving homeless people, instead of actually going out and trying to figure out the homeless problem. Now, I think San Francisco, shocker, is the one you've heard about most, if you've heard about it, is they're talking about paying every homeless person in the city $1,000 a month. Well, okay, does that really do anything? No. What does that do? That's going to be more drugs because they're going to have money to go buy more drugs, more crime, because guess what? Do people prey on the homeless? Yeah, they absolutely do. So if they know that they got $1,000 a month, I mean, these people don't have bank accounts for the most part. You're going to give them $1,000 and then be like, yeah, all right, have a good time.
Yeah. Kind of like in Georgia, I believe within the past year or two, Georgia had this thing where as long as you're only a pregnant black female, or you're a black female with kids, you're going to get $800 grant a month. And I'm like, for what? I'm like, damn. Literally just for being a black female with kids. I was like, yo, I thought that was crazy.
That sounds like something that Stacey Abrams dreamt up.
And then pushed it, And I don't know. I thought that was wild, and that I thought that was crazy, yeah.
Hey Wes, I want to back up a little bit and ask you a little bit more. I want to find out more about you and your experience. Yeah. So, have you always been kind of involved in, or politically aware? And if not, do you think that is that when your views kind of shifted, or I think what happens to a lot of people don't have much of an interest in politics, and they probably just lean one way or the other because of how they were raised or whatever. And then once you start to become politically aware, you're like, oh, okay, well, this is where I really align. How was your experience?
Oh yeah, a lot of it was, I'll be honest, definitely when I started getting in politics, I was more on the left side, and it was F Trump, et cetera, et cetera. But then I went to a friend's house who was a fellow Marine, and he had some other Marines there, and it was on the election night against Hillary and Trump, and the media saying, if you're wearing a MAGA hat, you're racist. I didn't experience that at all. So let's say, now are there some? Yeah, there's some out there, but not the whole group that the media says. As anyone, there's racist Democrats. You know what I'm saying? And
racism doesn't know party. That's the thing that I always try to tell people. Mm-hmm. An individual is a racist.
Yes,
a group generally is not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, within that group, yes, sure, you can have, and when we find those people, we deal with them appropriately.
Yes, exactly. That's what I said. I tell people, at least on my path, if I encounter an issue, it's an isolated issue. It's that issue. I'm going to handle that and then keep it moving. you know.
Right.
And if like for Jimmy, yeah, like and then Mike Hoff's wife, when I was in Maryland, she got me involved in politics. Joel Lynn, and I got to meet a bunch of people and then hear their ideals, and then they pretty much, yeah, the right side more or less align with my ideals and whatnot. And even after the election, people were like, oh, they're just trying to buy your vote, etc. I'm like, I think they're going through all this trying to buy my vote. And then after the election, like, you know, people said Dan Cox is a racist, and so is his family. And like you know, 2-3 months after the election, I was hanging out with his with Dan Cox's son and daughter and had a great time. Like people say Chuck Jenkins is a racist. That's not true. I know him. I know his wife. I know his daughter, his son, all of them. Yeah. You know, like,
I think that speaks a lot to you as a person, because it sounds like a lot has been thrown at you, but you've been open-minded the whole time. You're not willing to just accept on the surface that what they are telling you, that everybody else on the right is racist, or that you're set for this, or, you know, just because you're black that you need to be liberal. Because unfortunately, I think a lot of people maybe they just don't have that capacity of thought to really think that deeply and question, you know what, maybe what they're telling me isn't true. So, you know, I commend you at least for that. But unfortunately, a lot of people on the left and the right, they do fall victim to that, and just they live in those echo chambers, and they're only experiencing that, and they just accept it.
Hey, for you in the chat, if you have any questions for me, Jimmy, or Wes, feel free to put them in there. I see that we are getting some messages in there. Somebody said, "Hey, Chris and Jimmy." I don't know what you probably don't know Wes, but every time I start the show, I always that's how I always introduce Jimmy. I'm always like, "Hey, it's Chris," and of course, I'm here with Jimmy.
Yeah, and like, I was at CPAC, magged out in there, and I had a great time. No issues. No issues that everyone says is going on. You know, it was met a lot of awesome people, had drinks, went to, you know, her speeches, conversations. It was great. And that's one thing I want to do with Blexit, because I feel as if not all Republicans, but I feel a lot of us on the right, we're not meeting people where they're at. So I feel that sometimes a lot of people got to meet them where they're at and try to bring them up. I mean, like, that might be a solution to growing the movement. Because I mean, basically, like, you know, Joel Lynn and them, they met me where I was at, and yeah, you know, elevated me, and everything's been good.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, GD. I mean, Chris. Sorry.
I was going to say, I did just read a comment where Corey said Chris ignores all my comments. So I don't ignore your comments, but give me something to work with.
Wes, so I know you. I don't know much about you other than Chris told me that you lean conservative, and that's what I've gathered from this conversation so far. But I certainly don't align completely with the conservative side. I just tend to agree with them most often, and there's not much that I would say at least on the hard left that I agree with. So are there certain areas that you think that you lean one way or the other, where you're not, I guess maybe more specifically, what areas do you think that you think that the left gets right? Correct.
I'm not exactly sure, because I will say I do think that they're taking it back, you know, thousands of years. There's always that yin and yang. You need that balance, so there's an excess on either side. I do, you know, agree with that. Kind of like really similar to checks and balances. One topic that I'll be honest, that I'm nonchalant about is abortion, whether it's pro-life or pro-choice. I'm whatever, you know, and if you if you got to get that abortion, it's not in your state, then hop in your car and drive over to the closest state. You know, people can hop in their cars and go to Ocean City and Spring Break, so they can hop in their car and get that abortion if it's not offered in their state.
I think I agree with you, but I tend to always be, you know, I understand the arguments from both sides, but I think, but it took me a long time to really kind of break down and try to really hash that out. And that has led me to really side with the conservatives in that, and because I think the issue is about a life. I don't want to get too deep into that topic because we could go on, but I would love to have that conversation with you and explore, because I'm totally open minded, and you can sway me. But like one of the big aspects about that, or issues like capital punishment, or areas, what really concerns me is, like, I don't think you should be doing something that you wouldn't be willing to do personally. Like, how many of those people that want to get an abortion, and maybe there's areas where I maybe am hypocritical in this sense, and call me out on it. But if you wouldn't perform that surgery, or even if you had the capability, but I think if people actually were faced with terminating that baby's life and actually being able to see it and having to do that themselves, I don't think they would do that. They do that because they get to either be put to sleep or whatever, and they don't have the full experience. I know it's pretty traumatic even when you do, but I think that that's a whole different level that people wouldn't cross. But anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
No, it's all good. It's just, and I guess it's more like it's like on my lower level, or like priorities, I guess.
Yeah.
So like if I'm running for office, someone asks me about it, I'd kick the question to someone who's on our side that's dealing with it. I'll say, let's say if I was lieutenant governor, I'll say, ask Governor Cox. You know what I'm saying? Talking about it.
Well, I mean, from when people talk about the Black community and people try to defend the Black community, isn't that the leading cause of Black death is abortion, especially in places like New York or whatever. I mean, that's if you want to support Black lives, that's one way I would imagine you'd want to get behind that, and
Mm-hmm. And yeah, because it's just like and I thought about it on that end too, and then it's like kind of a rabbit hole, like kind of like I don't
like, so I understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like it's not, but also it's not exactly like your Larry Elders or your Kenneth Owens or like your Lieutenant Governor Rutherford's not getting their families getting their abortions.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, that's true too. Like, I'm not surprised for people that don't think about it or care too much, because it probably isn't going to impact them in their life. Like, they're not going to make those decisions to put themselves in that position. So,
And also think because I'm not I believe both you all said y'all are fathers and I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a father. My brother wasn't one either. So I guess like it really, at least from that mindset, it really hasn't. That's why I'm not. It's on the lower end of the priority, because I haven't created a life yet.
Right.
Or raised one.
So different topic on a completely different thing, and we gotta ask. Mm-hmm. We gotta ask. Jimmy, don't smile. Are you a sports fan?
I've been originally not really, but I've been slowly getting into sports. And it's only been recently. I went to Philly back in October and had a bomb time hanging out with a whole bunch of Phillies fans, and yeah.
I'm an Eagles fan.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I went to a bar, and they had the Phillies playing, and it was just a fun time. Even in the bar, I never had that much fun watching a sport in the bar before ever. And I just really fell in love with the city of Philadelphia. So I'm starting to learn more about Philly.
Oh, God. Well, we're gonna have to make sure you make it up to New York to go see some real sports teams.
I ain't going to the Bronx now.
Actually, it's kind of funny because the last time I went up there, it had been a while since I had been up there, and I really forgot just how ingrained Yankee Stadium really is in the city. Like, if you didn't know, if there was no game going on and you had no idea that was Yankee Stadium, other than the sign across the side of the entrance, you wouldn't even know that there was a stadium there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I mean, anybody who's a baseball fan, and I say this only because I did say that I'm a diehard baseball fan. I love baseball. I even went to Fenway Park just because, and that's Boston, our rival. I even went to Boston and went to Fenway Park and that was the last time I stepped foot in that city. But I just went there because it's the nostalgia of the sport, and it's a historic stadium and all that. So as a baseball fan, yeah. And I think the same is true for anybody who claims to be a real baseball fan. You have to go to Yankee Stadium at least once.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's fair. I'll take that. I might go to Fenway first, but maybe on the way back I'll swing by.
Yeah. My parents are actually from New York City. My dad was raised mostly in Harlem and Farragut projects in Brooklyn, and my mom's from Bed-Stuy. So, but I haven't been to New York in over 10 years. But definitely, yeah. Next time I go up there, which will be soon, I'll definitely hit up Yankee Stadium. Hell yeah! But what about the Mets? though? Do they share the same stadium? I don't know.
I'm sorry, who?
The Mets and the Yankees.
I'm sorry, who are the Mets?
That's serious. Kind of like Lakers and the Clippers. It's like, yeah.
No, so it's funny. It's funny for New Yorkers. There's rules for sports. So if you're a Yankees fan, you're a Giants fan. If you're a Mets fan, you're a Jets fan. If you're a Yankees Giants fan, you're also a Rangers fan. If you're a Mets and Jets fan, you're also an Islanders fan.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Is the city divided there or what? Actually.
So the Mets are in Queens, first of all, which is basically New Jersey. So we don't even count them as a New York team. And then you got Buffalo. And the only people that are Buffalo fans are the people from Buffalo. Nobody else in New York likes Buffalo. And that's just the way it is. But those are the rules. So like my stepsons are Giants, Rangers, and Mets fans. I'm like, no. Like that doesn't work. I'm like, that's how you can tell. Just so you know, that's how you can tell that somebody's not a native New Yorker.
Oh yeah. No, that kind of reminds me like the whole like the dividing of the sports. Like my captain in Afghanistan, he was from Bama, but his wife was from Auburn, and he said that like they get along, but like when they go to each other's family, it's like all this going on, all this stuff, and he's definitely hardcore Bama fan. Matter of fact, when Bama won the championship, and was it 2012? He flew the Bama flag up the flagpole, and I was like, oh yikes, he's really about that. Yeah,
I would rotate my camera around and show you the big Alabama A I got on my wall.
Oh, so you're a Bama guy?
Yeah, I'm a Bama fan.
Okay.
Well, funny story. I'll tell you why I became a Bama fan. So I joined the Navy in 1991, and my first duty station was Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico.
Wow.
And so I landed there. My first day of duty there was January 1st of 92. Right the week before the national championship game. That championship game was Alabama versus Miami. Everybody in my barracks was a diehard Miami fan. And I was like, I got so, in 1 week, I got so sick of hearing about Miami. I bet my entire first Navy paycheck on Alabama to win, and then Alabama throttled them in the national championship game. So I won so much money.
Hell yeah!
And I've been a Bama fan ever since. So
have you been to the stadium? Was it the Bryant Denny City? You been down there yet? Okay.
No.
Yeah, I seen it. Looks impressive. Yeah.
So
how about you? What about you, Jimmy?
What are we talking sports wise?
Yeah. Jimmy's a big college fan.
I'm not big into college sports. So I kind of always root for the hometown Terps.
For sure.
I'm more like a fair weather fan when it comes to that. They got to be good for me to spend my time. But I'm getting in a little bit into. I play a lot of fantasy sports. Getting into some sports betting a little bit, doing pretty well. So it keeps me interested in more games and stuff like that. So yeah.
Does your degree says American Military University?
Man, you got it. I didn't know if you could see that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll get the tip for my bachelor's. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. I did that. It took me a long time. I think I didn't start until I was 33-ish or something. Yeah. But I finally got it. Yeah.
Now that's the,
So GD in the comments said, "Sports, the only thing more polarizing than abortion."
Oh man, yeah. I think there's probably a lot more physical altercations, when it comes to that debate, for sure.
Well, I don't think people bomb sports complexes, but
Obviously, I'm not saying total violence, because if you include the actual abortion, yeah, you're that's a whole different thing. But
well, Chris, remember that one fool at Bama? He went to Auburn and poisoned the tree.
with the trees, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't even know about that.
Yeah, so they outside of Auburn, there's 2 trees that have been there for thousands of years. And before their games, that's kind of the student body's rallying point for their football games. And yeah, he went there and tried to poison the trees and kill them.
Oh my gosh.
And all of his kids were named after like Bama themes, like Paul, Crimson, like all.
Yeah,
Little Bear.
Yeah, official names too, not nicknames.
Wow. It's funny that how insane people can get when it comes to that. It's total tribalism. It really is.
Yeah.
And for no really good reason other than you kind of picked the team, you picked the tribe, and you want to back it up. So I think it speaks to a lot of really historical, primal, I guess, instincts, which is funny because you were saying you weren't much of a sports fan and you kind of recently got into it and you just enjoyed the experience. Well, I grew up and loved sports, and I kind of dove in. I started following some teams. I didn't really have any connection to the Eagles, but I once I got into sports, that's who I fell in love with, and just stuck with them. And I've really backtracked on that. I used to be a huge diehard Eagles fan, and now I really backtrack, and I just like the sports in general. I just enjoy good competition, and I really could care less about the tribe, because when my team sucks, it was ruining my day. Like, I'd watch the game and my day would be screwed up. And then even when they won, sometimes if they just didn't play to my expectations, I get frustrated and I'm like, this is stupid. And then I kind of even realized, like, once they finally won a Super Bowl, I was like, well, you know what? I didn't do anything to really contribute to this team. I don't deserve any credit or anything like that. So, why should I be so happy about it? I should enjoy the experience and have a good time, but like not really let it impact me personally. So that's kind of where I'm falling into sports. I really like the competition. I like the games. I root for different teams now, different players, people that I like. I root for them, but the tribal aspect of it, it doesn't interest me as much anymore.
I feel you. I had a neighbor who was like really down in the dumps, and I was like, "Yo, man, what's good? Like, what's wrong with you?" And then he was like, "Oh man, the Cowboys lost." And I was like,
"Well, his first mistake is he's a Cowboys fan."
Yeah.
But then I was asking him, like, "Hey, man,
decades behind."
I was like, "Did you put money on it?" And he was like, "Oh no." And I'm like, "Why are you so upset?"
Yeah.
He was like, like his girlfriend left him. He was like, damn. So I feel you, Jimmy, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel you on that.
Yeah. So, all right, if you guys are cool, I kind of want to bring it back a little bit to our political conversation, because I wanted to touch on something that Wes said earlier, and I think this was more specifically talking about. Well, it's really just about the polarizing sides of the political aisle. But a story that happened this week. I don't know. Are you aware of Anna Kasparian? Do you know who she is?
Yeah, from Young Turks. Yeah,
from Young Turks, exactly. So one of the most hardcore leftists, female hysterical, like,
by far.
She goes really hard. However, she was attacked by her own this week because she came out and she made a statement. She's getting very frustrated with the whole trans community and inclusiveness tags that people are using. And I think she made a statement talking about, don't refer to me as a birthing person or a person with a uterus or a person who menstruates. Like, I'm a woman. Call me a woman. And that's what I'm done with this inclusive language. And she just got eaten up by her own side, attacked relentlessly. And I wanted to just make that point and see if you can relate it all to that. Because I think it's funny because some of the most hardcore leftists, she's even recently gone on to Ben Shapiro's show. She was one that was willing to have a debate with him, I believe, at one of I forget which political event it was, but it's funny the difference between the left and the right, because we're like, hey Anna, the water's warm over here. We're willing to talk with you all day, have an open conversation, an honest dialogue. No matter what, if you agree or not, we're willing to have that conversation. And we're seeing the true colors of the left. I just want to give you an opportunity to respond to
that. No, you hit it. You hit it right on the head. And honestly, that's been happening a lot, especially, I would say definitely within the Black community, it happened a lot where, like, they'll take up for like the Black community, like they'll take up for a special interest group, and then once that special interest group gets what they want or starts making traction, then it's like, a stiff arm to the Black community. And on Officer Tatum's show, he mentioned twice that it happened where some Black ladies were like, hey, we supported y'all. We even went against our own men, this, that, and the other, to support y'all. And y'all trying to run and call it cis and chest feeders and birthing, same exact thing. And then she was just like, I can't believe this happened. And I was like, yo, I could have told you that in my like, Stevie Wonder could have seen that, what I'm saying? Because it happens every time.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna see starting, I would say starting around September or October of this year, you're really going to see those things start ramping up again, because of course 2024 is an election year, a presidential election year, and by then you're going to have everybody who's in is going to be in by then, and so you're really going to see these types of arguments and these types of comments starting to ramp back up. The pandering to all the different groups and all that. And then mysteriously, come November 9th of 2024, all that's going to go away again. And it's a cycle. And it always frustrates me because, and it's not just the left, that's the right too, where, it's a big deal all the way up until the election cycle, and then as soon as the election cycle is over, it all goes away. You never hear it, or if you do, it's very minimal compared to what it was for the last 10 months, and nothing gets done about any of it. It goes right back to the same thing. We're having the same arguments today that we had 20 years ago because nothing has changed. The rhetoric builds up, goes away, builds up, goes away. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. If you go back and look historically, it's a cycle that matches an election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So
no. Yeah. Like, I see what you mean. I do think it kind of gets more involved, like for example, like this is an observation and a minute too. Like, let's say, like when Mr. 45 came on, was coming on deck, he said X, Y, and Z. And I noticed that people that look like myself were like jumping in there and then making that, for the community, I guess. And then it was just like that nothing to do with you. But then, once they got what they got, needed, like for example, in where I used to live out in California, over there in Los Angeles, Black families are getting firebombed, and ran out of their neighborhoods by people come from like south of the border, moving up there and like pushing them out, killing them. Matter of fact, the first time I ever seen a swastika, it was not by a white person. I put that on my dead brother. It was not a white person banging a swastika. It was someone. It was another group of people. No one from Europe. That's a fact.
I mean, again, that's another argument. And this may just be me, but this is my personal observation of it. One, I work for all Black females, and they're all attorneys. They're all fantastic people. And we have great working relationship, always have.
Mhm.
But this notion that there is some mystic community that nobody can seem to find that's out there, of this huge white supremacist organization. And that, look, do I think that the KKK exists? Absolutely, they exist. Have I ever met one? I don't know. If I did, they never told me that they were part of the KKK.
Yeah, do they have an impact on your life or anybody's life, really? Like,
Nah, and if there's an event, which they would, it will be identified. We squash it, and then we move on. Kind of like there was an article about like racism in the military, and it said that it's rampant. And I will say I did encounter some. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, I encountered some issues from people that look like me, in the military, like the things we went through. It dwarfed some of that stuff,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But again, that was my experience. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, we got to take the holistic look at it, and like you said, yeah, I definitely never met a Klansman. Nah, I know they're out there.
Yeah,
but
but it's like anything else. I mean,
they're running nothing.
Yes, they're out there. Yes, they, when they make themselves known, because inevitably they do, they get addressed, they get identified, they get handled, however that handling happens. But I don't know. I just don't.
If you rank the threats to you personally or your community, they're very, very low on the list. For
very.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the crackhead sitting on the corner of downtown Frederick than I am anything else. I mean, if I'm leaving a bar at 11 o'clock at night, what's the meth head that's been laying there all day stewing that he doesn't have any more money for meth going to do than anything else?
I mean, it's like you said, when have you heard them doing anything violent to any community members? I'm way more concerned with the politicians that do have power and are impacting our lives daily by taking money out of our pockets, devaluing our every dime that we have.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a fact. Yeah, like when I look at some of these cities, like Chicago, or Los Angeles, and I look at the crime there. Baltimore, man, 334 murders last year, and it's just like, how are they?
And they're already on pace to beat that this year.
Oh yeah,
that they've demonized the law enforcement community there, which is only going to compound the issue. And, who's going to want to police when they know they're targeted for everything they do? They're going to be even the scapegoats for bad political policies. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I know. Senator Bill Folden. I was at one of his speeches, and he was saying how back in 2021, the cops were I think it was like it was like 1/3 of their allotted force. Like they're basically outnumbered out there almost. You know what I'm saying? And then he said, who's going to want to step into there when you catch a lot of flack? People treat you like shit. You're not paid the greatest, and that's why definitely back to blue. So they do a lot of good things,
Yeah.
And
look at the I think she's a city councilwoman in Portland, Oregon this week, who whatever their I think they have an state assembly. But she was up there and she was just crying, and the police response time is terrible and they're not showing up. And then they immediately showed a clip of her 2 years ago being the loudest member of that entire body, saying defund the police, they need to get out of this, they're not policing correctly, we need to reimagine policing. She was the strongest voice, which is why I think they have 1,800 based on their population. The police department should have 1,800 police. They currently have 1,000, and people and the police that are still there, of the 1,000 are still retiring and leaving. They're not recruiting anybody. They can't recruit anybody because nobody wants to be a cop out there. And she wonders why. She's upset that, and I'm assuming something happened close to home. You know what I mean? Her car got broken into, or she got robbed or mugged or something. And now it's, woe is me. The police aren't doing their job and all that. But you can't have it both ways. And that's the problem. We see the same thing with Alvin Bragg in New York. With he's the DA. He's the head law enforcement agent in the city, and now conveniently, since he's basically shut down the grand jury the last couple of days on the whole Stormy Daniels Trump thing, now magically and mysteriously he got a threatening letter in the mail today. So now he's the victim.
And also, like, you live in New York City, like, like you're DA and you're afraid of a scary letter. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, you got the 5 families up there, and you scared.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's just amazing to me how and the sad thing is, well, I say the sad thing. The other part of it is now, and you listen to President Biden. He's said it a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. The Republicans were the ones that wanted to defund the police. Now it's a complete. The problem is the hardcore progressive liberal sheeple buy right into that shit. Hook, line, and sinker. They're like, yeah, it was the Republicans that said. And what they're using is there was a bill that was proposed that had to do with some sort of FBI funding or something, but that. Anybody with a brain and anybody who knows how Congress works knows that a bill is not a bill on what they say a bill is on. That might be part of it, but there's 30 or 40 other things packed into that bill.
Yep.
So yeah, they voted against that bill because of the 20 other ridiculous ass things that you put in it. And it just so happens that also that was in that bill, tucked in the back corner, was funding for a particular FBI thing. So now it's, they voted against law enforcement. They're the ones that want to defund the police because they didn't vote for this bill.
Oh yeah, kind of like how they came back and they said, like, there was a bill that was only was for the military as well. It was a bill about identifying and targeting white supremacist gangs in the military, and they said the Republicans canceled it. But the Republicans canceled it because, like, it only targets one gang in the military.
Right.
There's street gangs and all types of gangs. So, like, if you want to go after gangs, go after all the gangs and not just, the gangs that's popular to go after,
Yeah. Let's not pick and choose. Just go after. It's the same thing as going, one thing that you're hearing about a little bit. And again, it's election time. So, now President Biden has approved. So for the longest time we've heard, well, the president never denied any drilling for natural gas and fracking. He never did that. Well, now all of a sudden Joe's reconsidering the leases and permits to drill on federal land in Alaska. Well, but wait a minute. I thought 7 months ago you said that he wasn't restricting them. So how can he now be approving them if he wasn't? I thought he was approving them all along. It's just amazing how, as we get closer to an election cycle and as we get closer to Joe making his official announcement that he's going to run again, now all of a sudden these things are changing, and now all of a sudden he wants to fund the police. All of a sudden he's friends with law enforcement. So again, it's all vote garnering. It's really what it boils down to.
Oh yeah, and like I seen that, Amala, because then it's like, hey, instead of giving us wishful thinking, just go ahead and do it. Just go ahead and do it instead of talking about it. Because like at least Mr. 45, he I don't know. Like, I feel as if he said he was going to do something, he did his best to get it done, and we saw the effort.
It was definitely more than lip service. Jimmy and I don't really know. I don't know if we've really gotten in depth.
Would you mind, excuse me real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
I don't know if you and I have ever really discussed it in any like super great detail, but and I know I've probably said it before, but I there's parts of President Trump when he was president that I really liked, and there's parts that I really didn't. I wish we could get rid of the portions that I didn't like, i.e., and I don't necessarily care about tweets, but I mean, just the stuff. He was his own worst enemy in a lot of things that made it a lot harder for him to try to govern. Not that, the Democrats were going to give him any leeway whether he did it or not, I guess, but I wish we could have the portions that I liked minus the portions that I didn't.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, yeah, I think that's the great debate about, what makes a better president. And unfortunately, too many people side with they just need to be presidential. They
Yeah,
need to
whatever
present
that means.
themselves better. Um, and yeah, but that doesn't say that even though Trump wasn't presidential, he had a lot of really good policies. He also didn't necessarily reduce spending. He didn't reduce
Right.
spending on a lot of things. He was still afraid to do that because he still has a huge ego and he wants to appease everybody so he can maximize his popularity. And you can't do that by, I think, taking cleaning up some things that are going to tick off some people.
Yeah.
I guess he didn't play to the widest crowd by not being he wasn't afraid to attack some people.
We see it now. I mean, he's consistently, even though DeSantis hasn't said that he's going to run, you haven't really heard him say anything about Nikki Haley, who has said that she's running. But he's certainly going after DeSantis, who has not said that he's running.
But he's a huge threat. Yeah.
He's a huge threat because he is Trump light. He is a politician, a seasoned politician, Trump, in a lot of regards, and I think Trump recognizes that.
Way more presidential. I have my reservations about Ron DeSantis.
Yep.
And I think I brought this up a lot, but there's only Donald Trump can do certain things that I do like. If there is a potential to drain the swamp, I think he's the one who's much more willing to do that.
I think it's interesting that, and quite frankly, he has attacked several former members of his cabinet. And I think that the difference is he, could you imagine Joe Biden attacking Buttigieg in any way, shape, or form? It would never happen. And I think the difference is do you want a leader who's not afraid to say, hey, I put this guy in this position and now I'm kind of regretting it because he sucks. And that's what Trump would do.
Well, yeah. He would. He is always going to blame somebody other than himself when that's not the right way to go. Even if he was wrong, yes, Trump would attack them, but I wouldn't say that that's the way to go. He should say, I made a mistake. I put the wrong guy in charge. That's on me. That's extreme ownership. Jocko Willink.
Yeah, that's right.
And so somebody who's presidential needs to exercise that. And I think Ron DeSantis would be a lot more like that. But and we're seeing that right now, I think, with the way that he is handling the potential indictment of Donald Trump. And he's kind of like, I'm not touching it. I'm not involved. You guys handle it. He's doing a good job of not responding to Donald Trump's attacks, but he's also being really smart about not backing Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, I say smart in the sense that
he's going to run.
Right. but I think a lot of people would support Ron DeSantis if he's willing to say, you know what, if they want to extradite Trump from Florida, he could step in and say, absolutely not. That's not going to happen on my watch. I will refuse to let that happen. And he hasn't done something like that. He hasn't taken that strong of a stance.
Hey, real quick, GD in the comments said, asked us a question, does Ramaswamy have any chance?
No, no, he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, he's, to me, one, I know his face, and I don't even know his name, but I know that that's who he is. I know nothing about him, even though he's been on TV 2 or 3 times giving interviews. I know nothing about him. He has done very little, even though we're kind of early on in any kind of presidential run for anything. I know nothing about the guy. I've not even been intrigued enough to do any research on the guy. So I would say no.
No, but I think that that's just because we are aware enough that he's not at that level. I think he's probably a fantastic candidate. He's probably
Maybe.
got really good policies, well thought out ideas. I think he does have a good grasp of everything, but he's just not at that level where I think he's got a chance. I do think he'd be a fantastic VP candidate, though.
Maybe.
I think that would be worthwhile. I think he brings a lot. What's that?
Who'd be a great VP?
Ramaswamy.
Is it Vivek? I think.
Yeah,
Ramaswamy. He's one of the few candidates who is declared already to that he's popular enough, I guess, that we're aware of his declaration.
Well, that's because there's only 3 of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this, Wes. Here's my thought on the GOP, and this of course, I'm counting DeSantis in this because my expectation is that he's ultimately going to run. I don't believe that Donald Trump can win the presidency again. And here's why I don't believe it. There's already a faction of the GOP that will never vote for him. There is not a Democrat that I've ever met that will vote for him. And he has a really hard time garnering a strong independent vote. So on a national scale, I don't see where, even though I agree with a lot, like I was telling Jimmy when you were away, there's a lot of his policies and stuff, and certainly my 401k appreciated President Trump. But I just don't see a way, if he gets the nomination, that he's going to be an actual viable candidate to win. I just don't see where he's going to get the votes. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's especially after these previous elections, where the Republicans that he did back, they didn't win, and they came out and they said the reason why was because that, I guess we're all on the same boat. That, we all personally like him, but as far as are you going to be able to win, that's the issue. And I'm really divided in the middle with that. I think both Trump and DeSantis are both great candidates, but as far as President Trump goes, if he was to run and win, either or, who could he trust? Because everyone that he was with turned on him, giving statements and everything else, and like you said, there's a growing faction of Republicans no, we ain't rocking with him, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, Herschel. I do know some candidates that won the primary off of Trump. When they went for the general, they started to get away from him. So I guess I don't know. Maybe we could see Trump as like President Emeritus of the Republican. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. So that's what I was gonna say. I was talking about Ron DeSantis because I think that's the game that he's playing. He knows that yes, while he would get a lot of support from the right, there's too many people that he wouldn't be able to pull from the left if he backs Trump at all. Because he knows that that's why Trump lost in 2020 was not because people like Biden, it's because they hated Trump. Yep. And so there's just so many people that say, if you're in Trump's camp, that you're a no-go for me. And I think Ron DeSantis could actually pull a lot of the left vote, the reasonable left, if.
And certainly independents. He could garner, which we know that's where elections, national elections, are won with independents. Your party, a party person is going to vote for their party in most cases. Although, again, that's where I see Trump having a problem too, because you got the Liz Cheney faction, that jackass from Illinois who quit Congress, who was on the January 6th committee. Those factions, the rhinos, the Mitt Romneys, those people are not going to vote for Trump. So you're not just losing. You're not, no Republican's going to gain a significant amount of Democratic votes. You're just not. And it's just the way it is. And most Democrats are not going to garner Republican votes. That's just the way it is. So the fight is for the independents. And the independents are not, by and large, do not support Trump. So that's where your problem lies. So if he wins, and I think what's going to happen is the more people that join or that announce their candidacy for the GOP nominee, the more that's going to help Trump. Because if he ends up with 34% of the vote in the primary, nobody's going to beat that. No, if you have 18 people, running for the GOP nomination, and he garners 34%, he's going to be the nominee. And I just don't know if he can win.
Yeah, and I do hope whoever wins the GOP nominee, to the best of my recollection, both times when Bernie Sanders lost his primary, the very next day he said, "Hey, everyone, I lost. I'm gonna back this person, and if you back me, please back them too." And I don't see that type of behavior that much on our side. You know what I'm saying? I see a lot of more backstab, talking about wives, etc. And like I told people at CPAC, we got to knock that off and come together. We can't. Hey, so it's like if me and Jimmy are running and Jimmy beats me, everyone, all right, Jimmy's the man. Let's support this dude.
Yeah. Well, and we did see that when Trump ran the first time. He went right after Ted Cruz during the primaries.
Yeah.
Immediately, Ted Cruz was on board afterwards, saying, "Hey, he's the nominee. This is who we're going to go with, and we support him." And it's important to do that.
But hey, didn't Ted Cruz get on the at some convention and say, "Hey, don't vote for the party, vote for your principal, vote for these"? Yeah, I think he came back with something slick like that. I remember something like that, but I see what you mean. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but that's exactly the case, and that's what you need. And that's the Democrats are much better at that. I mean, let's look at their caucus. They let an independent run as a Democrat for presidential elections. I mean, Bernie Sanders has been an independent in Congress for however long, 20, 30 years, whatever, however the hell long he's been there. He caucuses with them, but he's not a Democrat. But when it comes time to for presidential elections, he folds himself into that Democrat field. And then when he loses, he rolls right back in and he gets all his supporters who are pissed off that he got, when he went up against Hillary, he got cheated out of there. He got cheated out of that nomination clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly he did.
And then again, it was like Groundhog Day.
But then he turned right around and he got his, hundreds of thousands of followers to go right back into the fold, into the Democratic Party and vote for Hillary. So we're much worse at that. But again, I think they have to look at, and I hope this doesn't happen. I hope we don't have 15, 16, 17 people decide that they're going to run, because realistically, I'd be happy with 3. The 3 that are in there now, you got Nikki Haley, Trump, this guy, and maybe DeSantis if he decides to jump in. The 4 of them, I think you're going to get a much more solid outcome that's going to be beneficial to the national election than a primary.
What about that chick from Arizona? What's her name? I'm assuming that lady from Arizona. Was it Carrie Lake? Is that her name?
Carrie Lake. Yeah, Carrie Lake.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
I 100% agree. I was going to throw out a couple names too, but I think of all the candidates, I think she's going to be that huge Trump backer.
That's her
also
problem.
Throw her hat in the ring, but ultimately be vying for a VP spot. Because I think she would be a fantastic candidate there as well. She's doing. Even though she didn't win her election, I think she's primed for some great things. That's a good point. But
here's the other problem with this whole thing, and one of GD pointed out in the comments. If Trump loses the primary, does he pull chalks and run as an independent, which again screws whoever
is our side,
is our GOP nominee, because his faction. Look, one thing I'll say about Trump is he has a diehard following. The people, the MAGA people, and I hate to use that term because it doesn't really mean anything, but the people that are devoted to him are 100% devoted to him. There is no slip in their favoritism towards him. So if he was to run as an independent, that all but assures whoever the Democrats have running are going to win.
Agreed. No, I don't think that he would. I don't think that he would have the principles to refuse to do that. I think that's a fair point. I don't think that that's going to happen. But then again, I guess I don't know. I don't know if I think that he will. I can't say one way or the other whether or not I think he's actually going to be, going to be the candidate. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Again, I truly believe that it depends on how many people are in that, are declared candidates are in that group, because the more people you have, the more spread out the voting is going to be.
I still think they're going to get the Rubio, the Cruz, Larry Hogan, even.
Larry Hogan's already said he's not running.
Yeah.
He said he's not running?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that's exactly what he's been setting himself up for.
No,
wow.
He already said he's not running.
I thought so too, but until he said he wasn't going to run, because he was good at getting a blue-purple state like Maryland to get behind him for 8 years. People call him a rhino, and I understand why, but
well, people don't understand that he also had an assembly that had a super majority, so it didn't really matter if he vetoed something because they would just go and vote and destroy his veto.
Yes, just like with the vapes. He tried to make it to where they couldn't overcharge and taxes the vapes, and then they overrode the veto, and then they made the vape taxes 60% in Maryland. Yep.
I think there's only total in the assembly. I think there's total of like 6 Republicans, something like that.
That's how they were able to shit on Sheriff Jenkins.
Yeah.
There were 3 different sheriffs that went up for raises, and Sheriff Jenkins was the only one that got his raise denied. And then they said it was because of his ideals, which I thought was total BS. But yeah.
Well, they just don't like the fact that he's the only sheriff in the state of Maryland who supports the 287G program with ICE. So they're pretty pissy about that. I actually had an opportunity early on when I first started the podcast a couple of years ago. I went to his office and I interviewed him for a good almost 2 hours. And I didn't know a lot about him before that. But since then I've come to know him pretty well. We had an incident that happened not too long ago where they were talking about, it was a big Facebook story, Frederick News Post story. And they, of course, the immediate comments were, "Oh, he's a racist. He's a this. He's a that."
Because
and I went on
and
challenged some of those.
I hang out with his daughter. Like, a man's daughter is your pride and joy, and I'm good friends with Megan. Like we hang out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I went on and I challenged them, and I actually invited one of the women that was on there that making these allegations that he's racist and all that. And I actually invited her onto the show. I never heard back from her.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Well, that's the thing. Like from my experience in general, when it comes to people, like let's say if I'm in the middle, and I'm dealing with people on the right and people on the left. At least people on the right will engage me, debate, and have discourse, even if it's a few times where it's based on emotion. But on the left I compare them to be like, like echo chamber and drive by. They drive by with accusations, and then when you try to, respond back, they're already gone. Like guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a huge problem of the internet as well.
Yeah. Or they flag, or they get your comment flagged as hate speech or something. And
hey fellas, the brewery is closing up, so I just want to say it was a pleasure to have me on. I want to come back again. Y'all guys were awesome.
No, absolutely. And I was just going to say, we're going to wrap it up anyway. We usually try to stick to about an hour, maybe a little longer. But we really appreciate you coming on. And hey, next time.
That looks like a sweet spot, man. I'm gonna
come check that brewery out.
No, please, yeah.
Why don't you give it a plug?
Oh yeah, this right here is Harper's Ferry Brewery. It's across the bridge in Percival, Virginia, Hillsboro. It's not in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, because it's too small. But we get the name because we're like right outside of it, kind of like the new Commander Stadium will be in like Virginia, not actual DC. And I've been here for almost a year. They've taken good care of me. We matter of fact, for our Christmas party, the owner took us all to freaking Top Golf with a catered party.
Nice.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And give us a Christmas bonus. So I'm saying, like, take care of the employees. So come through. We have great views, great beers, and yeah, it's a good time.
When we have you back, Wes, we'll continue the conversation. But one thing to think about is something that I want to ask you when we have more time is, what's your political future? What are your goals?
I actually ran for Orphans Court judge in Frederick County, but it didn't work out because I was busy, and then I've been doing some things. But I'm definitely gonna try to run for office again in 2026 or 2028.
All right. Well, we'll definitely have you back.
I'm down.
And we'll definitely talk about that as one of our main focuses on our next show.
Yes, and one day we'll have the actual podcast here at the brewery. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. Because we're not too far from Tim Pool. We can get him up there. He's right across.
Oh, yeah. Kanye. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hey, everybody. I appreciate you watching. And again, we'll be back Tuesday with our wonderful episode. We didn't do it this week, but we'll do it next week with Trash Talking Tuesday. And we'll see you then. Talk to y'all later.
Thanks, Wes. See you guys.
Thanks so much. Peace.